Welcome to Nerds on Hip Hop. This podcast is about the intersection of hip hop and nerd life. Novelist, Fantasy Star, and Kometsu no Yaiba are all fair game, and if you know any of these names, welcome.
There are four main parts. We first review our weeks in nerddom and hip-hopdom, then we explore a theme through our hip-hop and nerd influences. At the end, we ask ourselves a question, and then we open up to your questions.
I am the Wolf's Den with the worst co-host of all time.
Worst?
You heard what you said before we recorded.
Yeah, I said I'm not going to let you self-deprecate yourself anymore. That's nice of me.
Yeah, but when I hype you up, you don't take it, so...
Yeah, well, there's a nice middle ground. It's like, geez, either I'm the best or the worst. Can I be an okay host? I'll take an okay host. or like you're better than most, or like above average. I will take above average. Actually, that's perfect.
You really enjoy that above average label so much.
I really do. I don't know what it is. It's just like it doesn't take as much. Like, I think what's that word? Like responsibility as being the best, but it's really like still really respectable. Like there's no.
Anyways, I'm joined by one of my favorite people ever, but doesn't like being called that. Who are you?
I like being called favorite. That's nice. I am Victoria, aka Miss Old School. Favorite is nice. I just don't want to be the best.
Okay, Mrs. Lupe. I ain't trying to be the greatest. That's still one of my favorite Lupe lines, actually.
Yeah, it is a good line. Okay, so starting off with nerddom. What have you been watching, listening to in relation to nerddom?
I decided to give Gintama a second shot. Uh-huh. Way back in like 2008, I tried watching Gintama, or I bought the manga, and I was like, I watched the first two episodes. I was like, this is not really it. But after I think you and I had watched Psyche, and we got so hyped about that, and I've been just watching more comedies,
right? And
I was like, you know what? People call Gintama one of the greatest comedies of all time. I was like, let me give it a second shot. And people tell you to skip the first two episodes because those aren't tied to the actual experience. Like those were celebration stories for people who've been reading the manga. Those aren't the first official episodes in terms of introduction and setup.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it was a little bit weird when people explained it to me like that. I was like, and they were like, no, the proper episode 1 is episode 3. I'm like, okay.
Alrighty then. Sounds like a comic book.
Wow, that's exactly. But I'm really, really impressed with Gintama. And part of what I'm surprised at is that it is. So I don't know if you know the premise of Gintama. Gintama is a story about like in late feudal Japan. Gets invaded by aliens.
Oh, I did not know this premise then. I was like, late feudal Japan sounds familiar.
Yeah, I think I want to say
aliens do not sound familiar.
And essentially what people are saying is that the aliens have been a historical a reference to like Western influences when US and other Western countries entered the country. And so it's equally samurai experience with all of this kind of modern technology. It's a very weird clash, but it works.
Okay.
And what's nice is realizing that historical element plays throughout. Because the very first thing Shinpachi talks about, like the way of the samurai, swords are outlawed, and people kind of treat people who carry like wooden swords and stuff like second-class citizens. Like it looks like you're trying to bring back a part of Japan that'll never be back, kind of thing. And I think I would have just looked at it at the surface level when I was younger. So I'm like, I'm glad I'm coming back to this later, because what ends up happening is that whole narrative about like preserving Japanese identity and tradition is all over the series. So it's like, as weird as this is going to sound, you'll have jokes that typically I don't like, or even like you'll have your poop jokes, or there's an episode about stealing panties. I'm just like, whatever.
Yeah.
But in between all of that is all talk about like preserving identity, and it's like, this is weird of a thing to be weaving in between your like lowbrow jokes. It's not like it doesn't make me laugh. It does. It's just, it's a very interesting series. Like, the best way I can talk about like the intentionality of what they do, like there's this one episode where the main character is Gintoki. He's a diabetic manga reading character, and he ends up having to team up with his old friend from the Great War of the Aliens and the Samurai to go get back his old friends. And they were talking about like the way of being a samurai is and maintaining your identity and who you are. And that's the end of that episode. The next episode deals with the police that have been annoying them the entire time.
Jeez.
Like, because like, but those policemen get the rights to carry swords. I mean, you see a flashback of them, and you realize that they've only became like they're originally a samurai dojo brought together by this one leader, and after the aliens came, the leader of that dojo was like, I will become your police force if it allows me to maintain these weapons. And then you can see that that's a way that people choose to maintain their identity even under colonial choices. So you see a bunch of people rebelling against these people who are still trying to fight for their identity in their own way. Like, it's stuff like that. We're just like, oh, you're not kidding here. You're very deliberate.
So wait, so is this the police force for the aliens or for like humans?
Essentially, it is a police force for Japan. Where aliens and humans are living together. So
keeping the peace between both of them, or just in general?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Okay. Do you think you're enjoying it now more because like you're older, like you have a different like sense of things or different taste in things, or like why do you think you're enjoying it more now than when you first got into it?
I think I just like that there's something else going on. I think that's the same thing I said with Psyche, where it's like with the comedy, if you can like weave in together this other thing that feels intentional and thoughtful, like, and for me, it's like this world feels cohesive. And that to me is a shocking thing. It's like, it doesn't matter what technology you bring up. It doesn't matter whatever. It's like, because of the alien technology, like you create this new environment. And I just think I'm older now where I think I'll appreciate that. Maybe if I was younger, I'd appreciate just the comedy stuff. The comedy is still very hit and miss for me. Like, there are things that still make me laugh, and then there are other times I'm just like, I feel terrible for laughing. Like, I feel like less than a human being sometimes. I know, but you enjoy when that happens to me.
Very much so. It's like the greatest thing ever.
So I'm curious how I feel throughout, but to bring in a side conversation, remember when you were like, I can't judge One Piece, right? And you're like, I can't judge One Piece because it's early. This is what I was kind of thinking about, because I watched this after I was trying to watch One Piece, and these are both long shonen series. This one is 400. Obviously, One Piece is way more than that. Like, One Piece is ungodly.
Yeah, it's 1 million episodes.
And I'm tolerating some of the things I don't like in this series, but I can see bigger things to come. And it's that kind of thing that I felt like with One Piece, the way the pacing was set up. Because this is only, I think, One Piece started in 2003 is when the animation started, I think, right?
Probably.
Because the manga is 98. Yeah. I just don't know when the animation started.
That sounds right. I know, like, it came out, let's see. What does Google say?
Yes, let's ask Mrs. Google.
Ooh, Mrs. Google. Okay, and on to Mrs. Wikipedia.
Yeah. Yes, Mrs. Google is speaking to Mrs. Wikipedia.
So the manga started in 97, but there's actually an anime film released in 98. Okay. And then the series started in 99. Wow.
Oh, wow. Dang. So that actually... I mean, I think that really highlights like what a few years of a difference that doing a long series anime can cause you.
Right.
Because I'm like, you're talking 99, which is before Naruto starts its run, like all those. But so think about all those pacing issues that we talk about Naruto, but worsened for the beginning part of One Piece. And I was like, and for me, as I said, it was harder. Like, I know One Piece has a bigger picture. I know One Piece is deep and rich. So it's not a question of that. It's just like, I'm not finding stuff to glean from it early. Where with this, another long running series. This is '06, I think, is the animation when it starts. Like, so it's like it doesn't look as good. Like, it's still aged. Like, those things I expect to come with it. But it's like I feel like there's stuff for me to chew on, even in between the things I'm not liking. And that's what was bothering me when I was like, this is why I was like, with One Piece, it's like, yeah, none of these series can I say like I have a definitive answer about. But I'm like, if one long running series can give me things to enjoy early on, even with the issues that come with being a dated anime, that's what I was holding One Piece to. I don't think I was trying to hold One Piece to be like animated like Full Metal Alchemist in 2009. Like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I'm just, so yeah.
That makes sense.
That's a side conversation we've had, but that's why I was like, I'm very impressed with what Gintama has given me so far.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I do think One Piece, to a degree, like struggles with that. Like, you don't get the bigger picture. And I think a lot of people will say like, you have to go up to like Alabasta. And like, I think that like the end of that arc is when you see like, oh, like this is what this show is about. And like, so I can totally see that. Cause I mean, and that happens like 100 episodes in. So I mean, that is a lot to ask. I mean, like, you gotta watch 100 episodes of this show and then you'll understand what it's about.
Right. I guess for me, it's just like, I just want seeds. I don't want the big, like, because it's like, I've had people tell me about Gintama. It's like, I'm not seeing a serious arc until like episode 60. So I'm like, I'm not expecting for them to pull these things in together. But it's like, I can see it at least. Like, I can see the fog. With One Piece, I don't even see fog. It's like I'm just in a room with no fog. And
what episode did you, or what, I guess not, I shouldn't say episode.
I stopped, I think, around episode 9 or 10 for One Piece. I'll go back to it, but that's where I'm at right now. And I was just like,
sorry, no, I was just going to say, I do think, like, Nami's arc is really great, too, when he finished that. And I think there's an argument for that being a good marker, too, which is a little bit earlier on.
Okay. So yeah. You'll get me to go back. I've been fiending for a bigger world. I think that's why I'm in the big surprise of Gintama. I was expecting to go in for laugh, but I felt like I got a world.
Oh, that's nice. That sounds like a good wedding vow.
That's amazing.
I expect you to laugh,
I'm going to record this episode on my phone and use that for my future wedding vows. I like this.
I will remind you the day before your wedding. Like, remember.
Yes.
This is your vow.
When I marry Park Shi-yin, I think is her name. That'll be it.
Park Shin-hee. Hey. I'm probably saying that wrong. Crap, that's bad.
But yes, when I marry her, that'll be the vow.
I approve.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, speaking of her, you probably may not know who we're talking about from both of our very, very bad pronunciations, most likely. But we're talking about the South Korean actress. She's been in Pinocchio, Heirs, really popular. Park Shin-hye. Really bad. I feel really bad I can't say this. I feel like I've heard it so many times, but for some reason, like, my brain is just, like, not getting that last syllable.
I'm just going to say you're more guilty because you spent a month in South Korea than I am.
I should really be better at this.
You really should.
I should. But yeah, so you just watched it. I watched the entire series, I want to say 2 months ago now. Fell in love with it. Yeah. Loved it. Like, and it's funny because I kind of been away from K-dramas for a really long time. Not a really long time, but it's been probably a year and a half since I finished a K-drama. I've started a few. This is the like, it's not a lot of them have like kept my attention or kind of like watch an episode like, yeah, I'll get back to it. And this was the first one where I was just like, I was watching every episode. Like, I probably finished it in like definitely less than a week, and that was only because I had a job. Like if this was college days K-drama fan, I probably would have been done in like 2 days. Or like I didn't need to wake up at 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. the next day to be at work.
Okay, talk to me about what you like about this. So I only got I'm through episode 3. I was trying to get to episode 4 because I think that's what you mentioned. But I'm like, so talk to me. What do you like about this? Like, you sound way more excited than I anticipated. So talk to me.
So, I mean, well, first off, I love Hoon Bin, who I know how to say his name because I love him, who is the main actor in this. I've also seen him in a few dramas. He's really popular also. And I didn't see W, which is the other K-drama. I think you've seen some episodes of that. The same writer does this show.
Oh, I could definitely see similarities now that you say that.
Yeah, I didn't see similarities, so I was like, oh, video games. Okay, this is your thing. And I just thought it was really clever. Just like if there was a game like this, and maybe there is a game like this, or even like thinking of like Pokemon Go, where like in the first episode you see him like going back to the bathroom and like getting the weapon and like trying to beat this guy, and it's just like that repetitive nature. I thought it was really funny to see in a real life setting, and just like how like ridiculous it kind of looks.
So, two things.
Yeah.
Give the people the pitch of the shows in case they don't know anything about it.
That's a good point. Okay, so, sorry, I got really excited. So this show is about a guy who, well, see, it's hard because like the entire premise of the show switches after episode 4.
Interesting. But I mean, you could at least give them the hook premise.
I can give him the hook premise. So this show is about a guy trying to and navigating a like real life RPG game. He's trying to acquire it. He runs a video game company. This is Hunbin's character. So he's trying to acquire this video game from that he's heard about. He's come across basically in some way or another. From this guy who reached out to him mysteriously, and he's like competing against his like former best friend / rival to get this game and acquire it and like, you know, distribute it. So this game is basically like right now it's set in Alhambra, which is in Spain, and like you can literally like you put on these contacts, you go around and like you're in the game. So like you'll see like non-playable characters that you have to fight. You can go and get weapons like later on I don't know if this is, it's not really a spoiler.
Spoil me. Okay. You're dealing with me. You know who you're dealing with.
So like later on, like the game actually does end up going into like wider release, and like they do endorsement deals with like Subway. So like you can go into Subway and eat and like put up your like, you know, MP and EV, you know, whatever. So it's like it's a really interesting like way to like see how this would be done in real life, and just like it just like made me kind of nostalgic a little bit.
Really?
I think, I don't know if it's because like Alhambra just has like this really like fairy tale old timey feel to it, and then just like
it is gorgeous.
Yeah, like, I want to go now.
For real, like the opening shot of just Barcelona in general, I was just like, jeez, man. I don't normally get like the traveling bug. That's not my thing. Okay. But damn.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I was like, I have never heard of Alhambra before this show, but now I want to go. And I felt the same way about if anyone's seen this movie, it's called In Bruges. And then Bruges is a city, and I forgot where, but like that movie made me want to go to Bruges, but it kind of has a similar feel. But yeah, it's just like, I guess because I don't play RPGs that much, like I kind of attribute RPGs to like 90s, early 2000s, like when I was playing like Star Ocean, Final Fantasy.
That makes sense. I can definitely see that.
So I'm just like, oh, like this is so cool, like just to see it. And I think just like see, like, and then most recently, of course, I played Pokemon Moon, and just like to see those aspects come to life. It's, really cool.
So, so let's start with your husbando, to say the least. He's a jerk.
He is.
A straight, like, I'm sure it's in the traditional K-drama where the jerk turns out to be a nice guy in the long run, changing his heart. Like, I'm sure that's the core storyline.
It is totally a trope.
But man, he's more, like, he's not just I almost want to say he's, like, worse than a Bakugo type jerk. Like, he's really, like, I'm thinking of the scene where he's forcing her to sign the thing. And I'm like, bruh, are you for real right now? Like, is this really how you go treat? Right.
Yeah. Although it's really funny. So like we're talking about the girl. So the other aspect of the show that you learn in the first episode is that so the guy who created the game kind of disappeared, but he tells him to meet him at this like bed and breakfast type place.
A hostel.
A hostel. Yeah, sorry. Hostel is a better word. And so, like, he's, like, there. He's, like, what the heck? And it turns out the owner of the hostel is the guy's sister. And because the guy is under 18, she's technically the owner of the game. Or I think, and he, like, kind of put in the hostel's name. And, like, so he's essentially doesn't tell her, and he kind of tricks her into selling her hostel to him without telling her that, like, you're actually giving me the rights to, like, this, like, multi-million-dollar game. But he does give her, like, I think 10 million?
10 billion, but that's not...
Well, 10 billion won, right?
Yeah, I don't know what that translates to.
10 million.
Oh, okay.
Take off 3 zeros, approximately.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's my, like, general rule. Yeah, so, like, 10 million, which is just a great deal still. It wasn't like he was just like, I'll give you, 100,000 for this $1 million thing. So that's the girl.
Yeah, I just felt really uncomfortable every time he interacted with her, and because it's like you don't see her as a person in any of this interaction ever. And in the back of my head, I'm just like, they're gonna try to make this romantic. Like, I can feel it because they do the classic thing where they're like staring at each other's eyes for like a good 30 seconds without any camera movement. I'm just like, I don't like this at all. Why do you want me to like this guy? Why? I don't feel bad that his best friend cheated his wife now. What do you want me to feel for this guy? After he spent like 5-10 minutes yelling at this poor girl, he goes back in with this like glub look of like, I'm just gonna coerce you to get, like, I don't know, like, I'm curious. You don't have to like spoil it outright for me, but how do they make that an actual even playing field romance? Like, what do they do? Like, again, you don't have to all the way spoil it for me, but it's like, I gotta know how you don't feel like, yo, these guys are the worst people in the history of existence, kind of thing.
So I think what they do, and I don't know if this was a healthy move, honestly, is because, like, the brother's missing. Right. So, like, when she kind of realizes the brother's missing and, like, he kind of knows, or he can help in a way, he kind of, like, not offers to help, but, like, vows, like, I'm going to find your brother. And, like, she kind of puts her trust in him to do that. And he kind of, like, genuinely wants to help her.
Right.
And also, like, he does, I don't want to say he gets a redemption arc, but he goes through a very traumatic event, I guess. Something very traumatic happens to him repeatedly. That sounds weird. And I don't know if that does good for the relationship, but it does make me, the viewer, more sympathetic towards him, I think.
Okay.
Because of what he goes through. But yeah, so I think, and him kind of like wanting to do the right thing versus him just wanting to like beat his rival friend. Yeah,
it was, it's very interesting watching how they frame it, because they ended up framing her as perfect kind of thing, which kind of just like, at first it was just like Uraka's kind of levels where she's like, oh, she's doing all of this kind of to like bring her family, to pay for her family stuff. I'm just like looking at her backstory, I'm like, man, y'all's gonna keep making this terrible. Oh gosh. Like, and it just kind of keeps piling on and piling on. I'm just like, and yet she's this kind, bubbly person through it all. I was just like, man, okay, I guess this is what we're doing. She's gonna be the perfect woman, so to speak.
That's another trope, to be honest with you. Like, you're gonna get the jerk and the really nice, perfect woman, and they're gonna put them together.
I guess Beauty and the Beast won.
Yeah, essentially. So the other thing about this drama, I really didn't want to ruin this for you.
Yes, ruin it for me.
I hate you. But it's fine because you'll see it very soon. So did you finish episode 3?
No, I think I'm at like 15 minutes left.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, gosh, I hate. All right. So the other major thing about this drama that I love is that, so he goes back to duel with the friend, right?
Right.
And they fight. And then the friend kind of is tired, sits on the bench and just he loses. The friend loses.
Okay.
And he just so then later on that night, he gets a call saying the friend died.
Okay.
And he was found on the bench. So
interesting.
Essentially, he killed him through the game. The game became reality.
So death in the game is death in real life.
Right. And then the second thing is because well, yeah, I don't know why, but the second thing is that now, because his friend and him, like they had like a choice to become allies or enemies.
Okay.
So his
I remember
friend, there's a glitch in the game. His friend keeps reappearing randomly to duel him.
Okay.
I think it's already in the 4th episode. And when he tries to duel him, like, you know, of course, like deaths in the game are real, but his friend like keeps reappearing. So like wherever, like any time of the day. So it kind of becomes like a suspense thriller to a degree. And it's really scary because like, and he gets really paranoid because like you could just like sitting in your living room. It's like, oh, now I got to fight for my life. And it's like, oh, I'm in the bathroom. Oh, now I got to fight for my life, you know?
Does it happen even when he logs out?
Yes. And he took off the contacts.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah,
there are a few other things that were going through my head of like this being a weird show.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, I'm not asking you to spoil this part, but that whole gun shootout scene in the middle of episode 2, I was just like, are we really ending the episode like for why?
I really love that because I was like, what? And it made me want to watch more just to see like, how do we get from where we are now to this?
Right. And I guess part of me, there are two things. I feel like the way that these episodes end are just weird. Like, because the end of the first episode is the kind of like him yelling at her, and then it kind of does this weird slow down. Like they do this weird slow mo thing, but it's not just slow mo. It's like the camera stutters a little bit. And I'm just like, y'all could just slow it down. Y'all don't need to stutter. Like this is not no frame rate. Like there's nothing here, but they do it all the time. All the time.
It's tension. But I think that's the episode when he finds out that that's his sister, though, right?
Yeah, that's the same episode with that. And then at the end of this other episode, it's like just this long, drawn out gun shootout. And then they still do this kind of weird camera thing. I'm just like, okay.
Yeah, I think
I guess
a lot of Korean dramas tend to work with like music and like cameras and like this like flash. It's like very like using everything to like bring out emotions or like whatever reaction they want from you. And they're big on like open endings and like cliffhangers.
I feel like that's very much comic bookish. It's just like, and here's the grand reveal. Come back to the next episode to find out.
Find out on the next episode of Dragon Ball Z.
Alhambra.
It really is like that. And I think that's what makes K-dramas for me like addictive. Because it is that like you get the endings open-ended or it's like cliffhanger and it's like, well, what's going to happen next?
So two things. A, you think I should definitely continue?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
And B, for anyone who's never watched a K-drama, is this a good introduction to that experience for them? I'm thinking yes. Like it feels like, I think you said it to me. You find it easier to sell somebody on K-dramas than anime?
Yeah.
But if someone watches an anime, they can watch a K-drama, but not necessarily the reverse.
Yes. Completely. I think just because I think animation in general puts a lot of people off. And I think anime, because, I don't know, maybe because it's animated and like it can be weird. Like those two things are like, okay, that's 2 strikes against someone who may not be open-minded. For the K-dramas, like, you really just have to get past the subtitles.
Right.
And so I think this would be a good starter K-drama for someone who is interested in sci-fi fantasy. I think if you're not interested in sci-fi fantasy, Boys Over Flowers is great.
The legendary
Boys Over Flowers, it is. I also think, and if you don't want like something rom-com-y, hip place in high school, I think City Hunter is really good too. It's kind of like action, romance.
I didn't even know that they did a Korean drama version of that anime.
They did, yeah. That's with Lee Min-ho, my other bae.
Husbando,
yeah. Yeah, they did. There's actually been a few remakes of it. And I went back to try and watch the anime after that K-drama, but I could not get into it. And maybe I'll try again. But yeah.
Yes, we'll do an episode.
And there's a Jackie Chan movie, too, that I have yet to watch. But yeah. The drama's really good.
You've gotten me to watch that so we can talk about this, but you've been reading stuff without me.
I have. I do that sometimes.
I mean, just sometimes.
Right. When I'm allowed.
Yes, because clearly having control. I was just trying to set up a segue. Don't make me sound like a criminal.
You've been watching that guy for too long. You're watching Hoon Bin for too long.
I'm just trying to set up a segue to do a good podcast. That's all. But no, I'm a criminal now. Go ahead.
So, I have been reading Spider-Man comics. I don't know why. I don't know if it was a Far From Home trailer that got me going, but for some reason I've been in a very Spider-Man mood. I think what started is maybe a lot of people have been theorizing that Spider-Man Far From Home will be somewhat based on Spider-Man, the comic book where we see Peter Parker enter the world with Miles Morales. So I always like, whenever, movies are coming out or like we see, things that could inspire a movie, I always like to go back and read the comic and just see what it's about and kind of look at the source material or possible source material. So when I watch the movie, I'm like, oh, connection.
Right.
Callback or whatever.
Get those synapses going.
Right. Yeah. Like, I enjoy that. Like, and the same thing with like, just regular movies that are based on novels. I try to read the novel before the movie comes out. Sometimes though. And sometimes that ruins the movie. Like because if the book's better than the movie, you're going to hate the movie. So anyway, I first read Spider-Man, which was really cool. It was interesting just to see like Peter Parker going into the world, like not realizing where he is, and then just kind of like, I think he's fighting against Mysterio. Yeah, that's why other people think it's like Far From Home. And like at first he thinks it's like Mysterio has him in a whatchamacallit, like, he's put like a spell on him because he's like, he's seeing like these like things like Spider-Man's dead, and like someone like sees him in his costume and they're like, oh, that's really insensitive, jerk. Like, he's just like, what? Like, what are you talking about? And then like everyone knows his name because, like his identity is revealed because he's dead in that, universe. So he's like, how does everyone know my name? He's freaking out, huh?
Like his worst nightmare.
Basically, yeah. It's like literally his worst nightmare. So then he decides to, which actually now that I think about it, oh no, well he still thinks it's Mysterio. But then I'm thinking about them, like how would people, because like he's kind of like thinks like I need to do something that like Mysterio wouldn't know about, so he ends up going to Aunt May's house. But now I'm like, well, if Mysterio knows your identity, wouldn't that be a thing? So maybe I forgot. Anyway, so he whatchamacallit? Yeah, so he goes to Aunt May's house, and then like of course it's like, very emotional because in that world Peter is gone. So it's just like it was really heartfelt. Like I just really, really dug that, like that reunion. Like you felt it, and it was really weird because this is like a trade, so you don't really like dig into like too much of like Spider-Man's backstory. Like he just literally goes to like fight Mysterio, and then like goes into this thing. So like the buildup is really good, and also like just seeing different universes of stuff. So in this one, Mary Jane is like more like slouchy. She's like wearing a hoodie. She has on glasses, like very like more nerdish. And he's like, oh, in my world, like you were a supermodel. And she's like, what? So like that was really interesting. It's like unbelievable.
How does that reunion scene between Peter and Aunt May feel compared to what happened in Spider-Verse when they met up? Because it feels very much the same kind of.
I did, yeah. So like reading this gave me a lot of Into the Spider-Verse vibes too, obviously. Yeah, similar. I want to say, I feel like this is wrong to say, but I do feel like the one in the comic felt a little bit stronger for some reason, because there's even a point where Peter's like, I shouldn't have come here, because like he felt so bad for like bringing up those emotions back for her to be like, Peter, and he can be like, actually kind of but not really,
Right.
And because like he went just to like see if Mysterio was messing with his head or not, and then when he realized he was actually in like another world, it's like, oh. Also, this is where we see Nick Fury as the Black Nick Fury, which is also really interesting. Just for him to be like, taking care of things and kind of blah blah blah. I feel like I'm pretty sure it's a Black Nick Fury. I feel like I want to check it now.
I feel like it was because the Ultimate Universe has always had a Black Nick Fury.
Right. Okay. I'm not great. I'm just like, I don't want people coming in my mentions later. Be like, how dare you?
You guys can still go in our mentions.
Please. Well, I mean, only if you call me above average. You above average woman. I'd be like, thank you. You only have an above average level of comic book knowledge. Yes, I do.
Oh boy. I feel like my mentions are going to get blown up now.
Probably.
But okay, go ahead above average co-host.
Thank you. Oh. And then so for some reason that made me want to like go into OG Spider-Man, like going back to like the original comic. I think because so my little personal information, my brother's favorite comic book character is Spider-Man. Like his nickname is Spidey. Like I've called him Spidey my entire life.
It's gone to the point where sometimes I actually forget what her brother's real name is.
Yeah, and like I wouldn't be surprised. Like that's probably the case for a lot of people, to be honest with you, because even like at his job, CEOs went by his last name. So like not many people I think know his first name, because like everyone, like my mom calls him Spidey, like like it's like that deep. So like, and I think just like always hearing him talk about it and like what he loves about it, like I was just like, you know what, like I want to go back and like read this. I don't know what made me like think of that, because obviously I've known my brother my whole life. He's older than me. But like I think last month I hit you up, I was like, I really want to like read some old Spider-Man comics. And luckily library had them, so I got the ebook. And so I got the like thing. The first thing that stuck out to me, so there's an introduction by Stan Lee, and he talks about like how so many people told him he shouldn't create this character because like he's like, people hate spiders, like how are you going to create like a character around spiders? Like no one wants to look at a spider. At the time teenagers are really more like sidekicks, like you had Robin, so he's like, you can't make a teenager like the main guy, like teenagers are only like sidekicks. Then there's like, he has too many problems, like no one reads about all this guy with all these money problems. Then he's not like tall and like handsome and like he's not Superman, he's not like Batman, he's not even like Iron Man or like Mr. Fantastic or whatever. Like he's just like this not pimply face, but like small nerd kid, like no one's like looking up to be Peter, Right. And then like having his Aunt May kind of like look after him is like, that's not macho. So it's just really interesting to think of like Spider-Man, essentially I would say arguably pre-MCU, the face of Marvel. I think that's fair to say. So it's funny to think like this was a character that they were kind of like introduced like last, like and he didn't start off with his own comic. He made his appearance in this other comic. It was like Amazing Fantasy. And it was kind of like the comic was ending. They're like, you can do whatever. And he was just like, well, time to introduce this character. I feel like everyone's been telling me no because no one cares. And it's the last episode and it ends up being a hit. And then Spider-Man gets his own comic. And it's in that Amazing Fantasy that you get that whole Uncle Ben story, which I thought was interesting, that like the first issue of Spider-Man is he's already Spider-Man. So, I don't know why I would assume that's an issue one thing. But I was like, oh, this like backstory happens in like a completely different comic book. And like after the Uncle Ben thing, I think like the last panel, and I can totally see like after reading that, like I could see why this would drive like people crazy. Like I want more of this. It's like, and a lean, silent figure slowly fades into the gathering darkness, aware at last that in this world with great power, there must also come great responsibility. And so a legend is born and a new name is added to the roster of those who make the world a fantasy, the most exciting realm of all. And I was just like, ooh, that sounds
that's
epic.
mad poetic.
Right? I was like, man.
#bars. Stan Lee got bars.
Stan Lee got bars for days. But then came the kind of sad realization, Spider-Man is kind of a jerk.
I mean, now I understand why you like two jerks. This all makes sense this episode.
I guess so. I mean, I didn't really like him in this comic, but yeah, so like I think the Spider-Man that I've always pictured is like one who, like, after, like, of course, like the jerk before Uncle Ben dies, but after Uncle Ben, it's like, I need to like do right, fight justice, and be like responsible. But instead you kind of see him like he fights villains like each, and that's the other thing, like each issue, I think I got up to like issue 10 maybe. Each issue he's fighting a different villain, which I thought was interesting. It's kind of like one shots, and that's something I don't think we really get in comic books anymore. There's more like these what are they called? Like, not, I guess, runs.
Right.
So we get more runs now, or events. And it was like, this issue he's fighting the Chameleon, this one he's fighting Vulture, this one he's fighting the Tinkerer, the next one he's fighting someone else. But the thing I started realizing is that his motives for fighting each of these people weren't like, this person's terrorizing the city, I need to like go help. It was always like an ulterior motive.
I wonder which other hero this sounds like that you love so much.
I knew you were going to bring that up, and don't you dare.
Sounds like a certain person who has bun heads, but we're gonna let it rock. Continue.
Anyways, so I mean, I will give like an asterisk, because I think part of it is like Uncle May struggling. She needs money to kind of like get stuff, so like that is a part of it. But so like he ends up going after the Chameleon because there's a paper looking for like J. Jonah Jameson is like, we want pictures of the Chameleon, and no one can like get pictures of him. So I think Spider-Man, what was the Chameleon? I forgot why he went after him, but like, was it to take pictures? It was something that was like, so the Chameleon calls out Spider-Man and is like, come here, it'll be profitable for you. So then he goes. And then it turns out the Chameleon was trying to frame him, or he does end up framing him. And then that's when Spider-Man actually goes after him, because he's like, he wants to clear his name. The next one is Vulture. That's when J. Jonah Jameson needs, like, he wants pictures of the Vulture. So Spider-Man goes after him to take pictures so he can get money for the pictures. And like he gets one, and like he's looking at the pictures, and that's when the Vulture spots him, and then that's when they fight, because like he was spotted, not because like I'm trying to take down the Vulture. And then the Tinkerer he starts working with some scientist, and he realizes that like the radio is bugged, so he tries to figure out like who bugged the radio, which was kind of like better.
Yeah, that's a lot better. That's reasonable.
It's reasonable, but it felt more like he was more curious, not because he was trying to help out this scientist.
I mean, he's
just like, what's that buzzing? There's a bug in here. What happened?
I mean, I let that rock. Okay. Curiosity can be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, it was better of all the other ones, I will say. And so yeah, he goes to check it out, actually, and that's what I think I sent this to you, because it was just the weirdest panel ever. Because like he ends up finding the Tinkerer, and it seems like the Tinkerer is working with like some aliens. And like he comes across the field, like seeing aliens for the first time is very like matter of fact. I'm just like, I know you are a scientist, Peter, and I guess like if you get bit by a spider and you have like all these powers, you would be,
less freaked out.
But it was also like, okay, I guess you're just fine with this. And then like the aliens get away, but he still like grabs the Tinkerer, or tries to grab him. And he's like, hold on there, you're not going anywhere. They were just doing their duty to whatever planet they were from, but you're a traitor. And I'm just like, what? I was like, that's some interesting reasoning there.
That's great.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been enjoying it. I did slow down on it a bit, but it's been really good. Like, it's been really interesting. I think I'm always happy when I go back to look at things and find that they aged well for the most part. And even the art to a degree, like it's also aged well. Like it's classic comic book style. Right. So
I want to ask a big Marcus question, but I'm gonna ask it, but I don't want you to give me your full answer. Just give me a short version of the answer.
Okay. Well, sorry. Before we continue, I'll just say a Marcus question is like a very, because I don't think we've ever like mentioned these.
That's a good point. I don't think we've ever thrown that on the podcast. So yes, go ahead, explain to the people.
I call Marcus questions. These questions that Marcus always throws at me randomly, which are like super like introspective, like esoteric. Like
okay, that's like esoteric.
It's like name your 5 life goals, and it's like 3 p.m. on like a Sunday, and I'm like, I don't know.
Okay, she's making this sound way. I just haven't. Okay, I started this podcast partially because I like asking my favorite co-host a lot of questions. She sometimes gets a little bit out of the blue questions from me outside of the podcast settings at 3 o'clock on a Sunday. And then she labeled it. Essentially what we'll call the Wolves Den question. That's what she decided to do.
Yes.
Trying to make me sound terrible. Anyways. I got into a conversation with the comic group chat that I've talked about. And I asked them, when they read a Spider-Man comic, do they care more about Spider-Man or Peter Parker? And there are a lot of reasons behind that, and I'll save all that for later. But off the top of the head, reading these now, do you care more about Peter Parker's day-to-day life, or do you care more about Peter, about when he's Spider-Man and his like interactions with villains and stuff? Like, what matters to you more?
Right. That's interesting. So, I hate to be like, it's 50-50, but it really, like, with these comics, I'd say it intersects so much, where it's like, you know, he becomes Spider-Man because of what happens to Peter Parker, and, like, he does things as Peter Parker because of what he can do as Spider-Man. But I'll say before this, or even going back before this, because I think I'll just say, like, with the animated series, I remember caring more about Peter Parker and how, like, being Spider-Man affects him as Peter Parker. Like, oh, he can't go on this date because he has to go save the world. Like, and I remember, like, caring more about that before. Now I think it's a little bit of both. Yeah, I think now it's more both. And that's partially due to, I think, the movies, too.
Okay. We can go further into that another day, but it's been percolating in my mind. I felt like this is a good opportunity to bring it up.
That makes sense, yeah. What about for you?
Right now, with my favorite iteration of Spider-Man in terms of any media being the 90s cartoon, I was always more caring about Peter than Spider-Man.
Right.
And that's always, like, when I think about the Spider-Man movies that we got, from Sam Raimi, it's always been that. So to me, that's what I care about more, but I realize interacting with my comic group chat, that's not what people necessarily care about most. So it was interesting where that conversation went.
Yeah. And I was also talking about the 90s animated one, just to be clear. I mean, it's the only one people talk about. Although I did like was Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. That was also great.
That's a good point. I don't remember much of that, though. It's become so much more of a meme than a show sometimes.
Pointing at each other. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's great. Yeah. But we also did hip-hop stuff. We did a lot of nerd stuff. We also listened to hip-hop.
Yes. I'll tell you what I've been getting my head into. This week, Freddie Gibbs released his new song preparing for the project. That he has a Mad Lib coming up called Bandana, and the song was called Crime Pays. The video is gorgeous. Like he frames it on a farm. I want to say in a foreign country of some sort. I want to say it's in Africa, and the only reason why I want to say that is because they're zebras. Like, it's a zebra farm essentially.
Okay, interesting.
And part of the reason is that Madlib and Freddie Gibbs did a project together, 5 years ago, called Pinata. And if you look at the album cover, it's in zebra stripes kind of pattern behind Gabe sitting down.
Okay.
So I feel like they wanted to like reuse that imagery in this song to kind of prepare people for this. And there's a shot where he's just like sitting in this river. I'm just like, man, this is like, it's so different because it's like typically, at least for most of the rap videos I see where they like do water shots, it's like people in a pool or people by a beach. Like just like a side country river, it just feels so different. It felt nostalgic to me because it's like I haven't seen anything like this since I was in Jamaica when I was like a teen in Jamaica kind of thing.
Wow. I was just going to ask you that if it reminded you of like being in Jamaica.
Yeah. And the video is just generally hilarious. There's a moment in time where he stops like the video is like 4 or 5 minutes long. 2 minutes of the video is him like yelling at there are like 3 white workers like shoveling like crap around and moving stuff, and he's just yelling at them for like 2 minutes. I'm just like, this is the most random break of a song. Like he does the first verse rapping in the middle of all of this, and then he just stops to like yell at the farm workers for 2 minutes and goes back to rap. And I was just like, okay,
alrighty then.
The beats kind of like, I mean, it's classic Mad Lib. It's not even quirky by any means. It's really classic piano, laid back, luxurious vibe. Drum pattern isn't really great, but I mean, it's a Mad Lib beat. When has there been a bad Mad Lib beat? And the thing that's always stood out for me is like Freddie Gibbs has a great flow in terms of like how he permutes his voice and stuff. Like he has a really good pocket, especially on top of these beats. But I've never. There are very few times, at least. Like, he's so hit or miss for me for, like, what he's saying. At least that's how it's felt like. I keep on trying to go back to Pinata, but it's been a while. He had a project last year called Fetty and another called Freddy, and I liked both of those. So he's in between for me sometimes. But there are a couple of lines in the verses I like. Like, there's this phrase where he says, like, made it through whole months, lights out, I've seen brighter days. I'm like, that's a nice way to talk about, like, being broke, but seeing bright, like, that's like clever wordplay, phrasing, things like that. So it's like, this is tight. I mean, it's dope. I'm looking forward to the project. I'm hoping that I will like this more than I liked Pinata.
Cool. You mentioned Mad Lib as like never having bad beat, and I feel like this other producer we're about to talk about also never has a bad beat. So we both listened to Blue and Exile's True Livin, which is basically a 3-song project. Yeah,
it's really an EP.
Right, yeah. Actually, there's been like a conversation going on where it's like, people are like, what's the difference between EPs, LPs, albums, and like mixtapes anymore? Because it's so like, there's so much overlap now. And like definitions are definitely blurred. But yeah. Mixtape, EP. It's an EP. I feel like if you have original beats, it's an EP. If you have borrowed beats that you didn't clear, it's a mixtape.
So I like that. I think a mixtape is you didn't clear no samples here.
Right. Like this is like straight, like no like red tape, like, like no clearing samples. Like no one's like going over like this line wasn't good. It's like, nope, just recorded it, put it out.
Right. An EP is like, this holds you over to whenever we decide to do an album again.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, this is like original stuff. This is like, yeah. That's, how I see it. And then,
but what did you think of it?
I loved it. I love Blue. I think any project or song that starts off with, a soul track or a soul sample, I'm just like immediately sold. Immediately. I'm just like, yes, I am here for this. And it's just like, I love these two together. Like their projects are always great. I think this is like their 4th one now, I want to say. Maybe 3rd.
I think you're right.
Definitely 3rd. I want to say 4th though.
I think you're right. It's 4th. I think it's Below the Heavens.
Right.
Give Me Flowers.
Yeah.
And then they had a project where it was like a bunch of outtakes from Below the Heavens. And then this. Yeah, I think you're right. It's 4.
Okay. The 3rd one was the one I wasn't sure about, the outtakes one. But yeah, I just remember like talking about it with you at some point. And I think the thing, like, there were a few lines that stood out to me. I think the first one was like, "This is for those becoming who you intend to be. Pull off your suits and struggle and wash your sins and see." And it just made me realize, like, what I think I really dig about Blue is, like, he really is, like, a rapper who, like, rhymes for people who, like, want to be their best selves. Like, and it was a big thing in Below the Heavens, too, where he's like, I want to be this better person, but I'm also struggling. And it's, like, this kind of realism, but also optimism to it. And it's just, like, a nice blending of that. Yeah. What did you think? I have other thoughts, but I want to,
Oh, yeah. I mean, starting with the very first title track, True Livin, I'm like, this... It feels like Blue released another project earlier this year, which I forgot what it was called. I think it's called either like A Long Hot Day in LA or something like that. And it's very old West Coast stuff. This is obviously a back to what he normally does with Exile. And this song in particular feels like, I don't know if you remember how he ended Below the Heavens, talking about like his spirituality, and then same thing at the end of Give Me Flowers, he has a song of Man. Like, it's always this kind of like, it's funny because Blue is kind of preachy when he's ready. Like,
yeah. It's weird. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, what I find interesting is that instead though, he ends up kind of making this preachiness a little different than where he was the last time. Like, there's this phrase where he's like, life, liberty, and to be detached from evil. Like, that's what he wants. Or open your hearts and let us walk through your mental fortress. Like, it's always this kind of like there's a level of freedom that he wants, and it's like, it's always wrapped in like religious imagery. Like, there's a phrase where it's like, he's preaching with like, we're preaching about what's next coming.
Right.
Always that. I love this though. I love this joint.
Yeah, I think like looking at the lyrics, like, I mean, I don't think I would classify it as this, but it could almost be like a Christian rap album. It's like almost disguised as one. What do you say? Because like there is a lot of religious references, as he mentioned. Like he talks about like and you can see him like their hands stretching out to God. There was another one I just missed. But like the other one I just mentioned when he's talking about sins, like washing your sins. And I guess maybe it's more like I'm talking about it. Glory be to God, a match made in heaven. But there was another line in here that I really enjoyed. I'm trying to find it right now. I should have wrote it down.
I think while you look for that, I think the main thing is that I think it might just be about Exile's production in particular that seems to pull this kind of just general conversation out of Blue in general. Because there's projects where he doesn't really talk about this at all, so to speak. But it's any time when he ends up back on an Exile beat, it's always kind of, there's a sense of
centering.
Yeah, I think that's the best phrase for it. Like, there's a sense of centering. Like, the only reason why I didn't want to call it a Christian thing or anything is like there aren't any like Jesus references.
Yeah.
Like he's done that a track before called Jesus, so it's not like it's out of the realm for him.
Right. I did find it. It's actually the line before the one you mentioned. They never thought a wish could lead the world. And I mean, I think it's just a poetic line, but it also, I'm not sure if he did it on purpose, but the way he said it, it sounded like Wiz Khalifa. Not Wiz Khalifa, but like Wiz Khalif. He said, wish could lead. And it was just like, it's something like that caught me. I don't know. I don't think it was done on purpose, but I really enjoy like those little like things like that when rappers do it. In Rakim's song, oh gosh, I'm forgetting it, but he's like, the end is near and it's you and I verse. And it's like, it sounds like you and I first, and it's also universe. And I'm just like, it's really clever.
Yeah. I think, especially on one of the later tracks, I think Power to the People, where he does like the 5% of stuff. Like, I feel like there's a classic 5% of thing where you try to like repurpose words to mean different things.
Right. Yeah, that was, and it's one of those things like, if you know, you know.
Yeah.
Because it kind of blends in, but it's also like, oh, I see what you did there.
Right.
I did enjoy Power to the People too. I another like very religious song. I thought it was interesting that he, for some reason, it didn't bother me. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of Spreading Sunshine. I'm looking at the lyrics for Power to the People though. I guess maybe we should go to Spreading Sunshine first and kind of go in order. That might be better.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. I really like this song too, just like, or Spread Sunshine, sorry. Because for some reason I wasn't expecting the ending, even though it's the name of the song. Where he's kind of like talking about like, he's like, I'll travel more miles than like the Africans into Asia. Like, you know, I'll travel like more than anybody in the world. Or like I would go to the depths of hell and the gates of heaven and come back from the afterlife just to complete my mission, spreading sunshine. And I was like, that's dope. Like, I really, like, that was like poetry. And I mean, obviously, you know, rap is poetry, but yeah.
Right. I feel like we always use that phrase as poetry to like heighten the way that he phrases it. Because, I mean, he's a wordsmith. Like,
yeah.
And for me, it's always the ability to kind of pull phrases together. Like the phrase, like on the second verse, was like, "Praise God, Father of Christ, cipher complete." Like to repurpose what is such the classic, like that cipher complete is such like, I forgot what Nas said. It's like, what did he say? It's like, I think, dang, he said it on Illmatic was like, "This makes my cipher complete." Jay would say like, "S Carter's on my feet make my cipher complete." Like that's such a classic hip hop reference. And I guess in this one being way more religious in nature. I mean, he has a phrase of Paul earlier, like, so yeah.
Yeah, it's like a lot. I did feel some type of way about, for some reason, I don't know why, because he says a lot of stuff when he's like, I travel more miles than Harriet Tubman. I'm like, whoa there. Calm down. But
I think we're getting to, I find it funny, but we're more concerned where when rappers use like black figures as kind of metaphors, but never as issued when like they use religious references. Like
it's true. Like, you can talk about Jesus all you want, but don't you dare talk about Harriet Tubman. Man, I feel
like there's just something about. I feel like we're used to rappers doing one rather than the other. Sometimes it's like
yeah. But I also like the line where he's like, more miles than Marco Polo, more miles than Grandpa's Volvo. Why can I say that right? Volvo. That sounds so weird. Anyway, the car. Volvo. Yeah, and it's just like, I think thinking of something like Marco Polo feels so grand and kind of like far away. And like Grandpa's Volvo sounds very like close and home and like familiar. So it's just like a nice juxtaposition there too. I enjoyed.
I think he's just great at making. I think I almost want to say it's like common, but maybe not. He has a great way of making these, I guess we can call like grander references, be religious, be black folk and so forth, but it's like always will find a way to like distill it down to like something more comfy.
Yeah, like comfy is a really good word, and smooth.
Yeah.
Like it never feels out of place. It's just like he brings in all these references and it's just like, oh, it's real smooth. And then there's Power to the People. It's a really like, what's the word? It feels like, I mean, obviously it's like revolutionary. It feels like a rallying song to a degree. I mean, it's called Power to the People. We talking about 5%ers, like that just goes hand in hand, I think. But there's also like this kind of chanting feel to it. This kind of, I wouldn't say Negro spiritual-ish, but not necessarily.
I think that's fair. I mean, given how, I don't know who does the third verse. One of the things I tried looking up the lyrics to try to figure out who does which verse.
Yeah, same.
But because I felt like ultimately whoever does the third verse was like power to the people of North Dakota, the thing with the pipeline, free Mumia, like freedom fighters will never call a cop. Like it's like that was very timely because sometimes the references that people use for this stuff is like Like I think he had the Walter Scott. I forgot who else he had.
Nelson Mandela, Marcus Garvey.
That was when Aloe Black was singing, right?
Oh, okay. Sorry, yeah.
But it's like sometimes like we hear those stories and elements all the time. Like there's never going to be a time we don't hear Nelson Mandela or like Harriet. Like those people we remember. I feel like that's the first time I've heard the North Dakota pipeline ever been rapped about.
Fair, yeah. That's a good point.
So to me, I appreciated that kind of additional pieces to the tapestry of revolution, so to speak. Like it's always it's nice to have more new references rather than the ones I don't want to say we've worn out, but because like there's a phrase like Blue said it back on the very first track where it's like on True Livin, where he's like, "Oh, the next president might be a woman." Like it. Sometimes the phrase, the references can feel. There's a line between too new and too old, where it's just like if it's too old, it feels retro in the sense of like, oh yeah, I mean, we've been talking about these people forever, our entire lives. Of course, you're gonna do that,
right?
Like. Especially for a song that's supposed to like rile up and be a rallying cry, like it's nice to get improved. I don't want to call it improved, but as I said, more different references.
Yeah, I agree. Because even like he says, like free mumia. Oh, gosh, I'm like doing terrible with names today.
Don't worry, Dr. Lewis will hate us later.
You know, and it's funny. I was just thinking about Dr. Lewis because I feel like that verse is if he was a rapper, this would be the verse he would rap. Like these are the references he would make. And if you don't know Dr. Lewis, we're talking about a professor that both Mark Wilson and I had at City College. One of the smartest Black scholars I know. I'm assuming it's the same for you.
Yes.
Super like revolutionary, great professor. Yeah.
Yeah. Once you have him, you can't unsee the world in a different light.
Yeah, definitely. Like so much dismantling happens in his class, and so much unlearning and relearning about the world.
Quite so.
Yep. And he's a hip hop fan.
Yes.
So yeah, this would be. I feel like this would be the like I can totally see him. Like he would know about the North Dakota pipeline. He would know about like Walter Scott. And, like I call the freedom fighters. Never will I call the cop. Like I could see him kind of getting into that kind of vibe.
Yeah, I liked Fashawn verse. He was the second to last rapper, and for me, I always I liked what he ended up like playing around with the wall. Obviously, talking about Trump building walls, like build your wall. I bet it falls down like we walk around it like Jericho. I was like, oh, that's kind of clean.
Yeah, it's just like a smooth project. It's a really, really smooth project. And then the rest of the album is the instrumentals and the acapella version.
No, go ahead.
I was thinking that I think you being a beat maker, it'd be interesting to hear, like, was there anything you enjoyed about Exile? Like anything he did that kind of stuck out to you?
Not immediately. I'd have to re-listen to, like, for me, my favorite beat is True Livin. Like, that's easily the type of beat that I wish I could make in my life. I felt like Power to the People felt like an 08 type beat. Like it feels very much as something I could hear of that era, but I did not give enough a listen to really try to figure out how to phrase that into words why I felt that way. But so from a beat maker's perspective, I don't have it all in my head right now to give you an actual thoughtful insight.
I did the wolves den. Question to the wolves den.
Goodbye.
So I wouldn't say on a completely different note.
Yes, on a completely different note. I don't know why you're trying to pretend as if they're not very different artists.
They are very different artists. I guess I'm more so saying that I think to some people, and maybe not, because she's actually pretty respected. The person I'm about to talk about is part of a group of rappers I think people count as like not real hip hop or like, you know.
I mean, she can rap. Like
She
not
can
like she
rap.
can't. That's
She
what
can
I'm
totally
saying.
rap.
Like,
She can rap.
I don't think she's in the boat of like. She's not in that boat. Like,
you don't think so? I mean, well, even so, I'm thinking like so you don't think she's in like a Migos boat?
I would.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to. So I feel like my head is going in two directions. I feel like, and maybe this is just not me listening to enough. It's like I'd rather hear. I think I'd rather hear her rap than the Migos.
Fair. Yeah, I think that's where the general consensus is. I think most people I know who are like quote unquote hip hop purists, are like either like I don't know enough about her or she.
Yeah.
And some people have been saying she can rap, but I think there's a hesitancy there. Anyway, we're talking about Meg the Stallion. Meg the Stallion. Listen to her album Fever, which dropped a few weeks ago, I want to say. I loved it. Like, I think my general rule, not rule for albums, but like my marker for a good album is if I can listen to it without wanting to stop it or skip a song. And that didn't happen to me. Like I usually listen to albums as I'm like cleaning or like doing the dishes and kind of have like going on in the background. And, like there was never a time where I wanted to like skip a track or wanted to stop the album. Like this is boring. Like I don't like this. I think the ones that stuck out to me, obviously Reeler, which is the lead track. I love Ratchet. It is the funnest song ever. And it's also like pretty repetitive. She's like, let's get ratchet, let's get ratchet, let's get but she has these one-liners that I think are so funny and good. One is like, I beat the shit out that bitch like an edema. And I texted to my friend who's in med school. So I was just like, this is what you're missing out on. She's not really big into hip hop. Because I was like, you know what this is. I was kind of sad at first. And she was like, that's not medically accurate. And I was like, wait, what? She's like, oh, wait, no, right. You're right. It is. And I was just like, okay. The other one's like, I don't even chase my liquor. Why would I chase a nigga? And it's just like, damn. Like, it makes me want to be like, a bad bee. And then like, of course, like, I think the other thing too is like, reason I think she caught my attention was because people were like, a bunch of people kept saying like, oh, this girl can rap, this woman can rap, this woman can rap. And then the second thing was she's an anime fan, which has been really cool. Like she started this super thread for like women to like women who are into anime, like post pictures of yourself and she'll like, like the adorned by G shirt says pretty girls like anime. Like quite literally. And it's just like really cool just to see a woman who can rap putting out a great project and also like representing for like this underrepresented groups of people in pop culture, which is like Black women nerds and Black women rappers.
Right.
And like doing well in both. Plus she has like whatchamacallit's hair from My Hero Academia. Gosh, I forgot his name.
Oh, I know.
Fire and Ice. I know. It's been so long since I need to catch up on this.
We have to rewatch My Hero to get back on a good friend.
Wait, I have to look this up because I feel like
we're terrible people right now for not remembering his name.
Honestly, I'm just like, how? He's like the main guy. Todoroki.
Yeah. You? So, two questions. Because I listened to a bunch of reviews about the album. Because I'm more so of just like, it's not a question whether or not she can rap. Because like I was like, she's pretty solid enough. Like,
right.
I was just more so like, will I like it? And I was like, I spoke to Luke. I read it. I watched his review. It's like he's like, this is kind of the stereotypical stuff that we get now in terms of like, if you're a competent enough rapper, the content is kind of to be like you knew what you were getting content wise,
right? Yeah, there's
not like she's outstanding of a rapper. She's solid enough. So it's like it's an average project. Do you get the sense, at least from like for someone like me, do you think I'll get a lot out of it or? not necessarily, because I feel like the phrase that you said is just like I can immediately see myself not necessarily appreciating it like you. Is like you use the word fun, and without getting into like our too much of a conversation on wax, but you and I have talked about like when we look for fun in art, we sometimes look for different things. Of what can be fun.
Very much so. Yeah, this is definitely feels like this is an album for like turning up. Like someone even said, I think on Twitter, where it's like this album was made for women and for like turn up. Like it's a perfect summer album. Like if you want like go parties, like pregame, like that feeling of getting amped, like this is that album for that. And specifically I think for women.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't think you would enjoy that as
right.
much,
Like you can already tell that Marcus and Turn Up is not a thing that goes in the same sentence quite often.
Sadly. But I think if you listen to it, I don't think you would feel like it was a waste of time.
Right. Like I feel like I would be like, oh, this is solid. Like I feel like I just walk. I was like, yeah. Yeah,
I think. Yeah, exactly. Like you'd be like, "Oh, that was solid," and probably never listen to it again. But like you'll be
that's exactly how I feel like.
You'll be at like not a bar later on. It's like, "Oh, I know this song because I listened to that album
that one time."
That one time, exactly. Yeah.
Any other quotables you want to throw out to the people?
Not that I can think of at the moment. I will say though, her music video for Fever is also dope. I really love. She kind of has a 70s blaxploitation feel, and I thought it was cool for her to like bring that back, and for it to kind of still feel a little fresh.
Nice. Mm-hmm. So we have a special theme for today's episode. I didn't even give you the context to why I chose this theme.
Ooh, context.
So we've essentially gone through a time skip ourselves. It's been, yes, exactly. This is one of the things that we alluded to, I think, in the Avengers episode, was that we're coming back with a seasonal approach to Nerds and Hip Hop. But as a result of that, you haven't had or at least you, the audience, have not had a traditional episode or traditional like day-to-day episodes from us in a while. And it's like, it feels like we've gone through our own time skips, like, and because of that, I was like, when we think of time skips, what do we think of like in nerdom and hip hopdom? So that was the context.
Cool. Yeah, I think I was. No, I remember like I was looking at our notes here that we actually don't have, but we have. we memorize everything in our heads, all of our notes. We don't write anything down. But yeah,
Jay-Z of the podcasting,
right? Straight from the dome. But yeah, I literally was thinking about time jumps and time skips yesterday or the day before. I don't know why, and it was just like, oh, this is perfect. Like perfect timing. But yeah.
Pun intended.
Pun intended. It wasn't at first, but it is now. I did think about that afterwards, but I wasn't going to say it. I was like, no, let me be chill.
So what time skips what you were thinking about yesterday? Like what were...
Yeah. Maybe it's because we've been talking about Memories of Alhambra, and I've been trying to think about what K-drama I want to watch next. But I immediately thought of K-dramas because I want to say almost everyone I've watched, a lot of them that I've watched always have a time skip, usually at the end. Sorry. And I usually hate them.
Wow, and that's a strong word.
It is. Because I think the thing that with K-dramas that the only downside is their endings aren't always great. It's the same thing, like, like we talk about like open endings right. With like each episode, like the last episode is usually like an open ending, and then sometimes it's like a time skip and an open ending, so you're really like, what is going on? Like, one of the biggest examples was a show called Big I watched, mentioning the show. If anyone knows it, they are probably shaking with fury right now because that's how like angry this ending made people.
Wow.
I'll get a short synopsis. So, and it's a weird synopsis. It's very weird. So just bear with me. A woman, 24-year-old teacher, is engaged to like a 30-year-old guy.
Sounds normal.
She teaches an 18-year-old. He is legal.
I don't like where this is going already. I can feel it.
And somehow or another, the 18-year-old and the 30-year-old guy get into a crash at the same time. And they swap souls. But the 30-year-old guy who is in the 18-year-old's body goes into a coma. Yeah. I tell you, this gets weird. I'm trying to keep this straight for you. So, like, the only person who is, like, conscious right now is technically the 18-year-old, but he's in the 30-year-old's body. And he gets the teacher, he convinces her that it's him pretty early on. I think he says something that, like, he said to her earlier, and it's kind of like, it is you, but, like, they decide they need to keep up appearances because yada, yada, yada. And then, like, it turns out, like, this woman so the 30-year-old is a doctor. This woman at the hospital kind of does something to him that makes it seem like he might have been cheating on her. But you can't confirm it because he's in a coma. So like, and then because the 18-year-old in the 30-year-old's body is living with the 24-year-old teacher, because they're trying to keep up appearances, of course, they start to fall in love with each other. And then she's not sure if she's actually falling in love with him or she's just like, this is so they're actually engaged. He's engaged to the 30-year-old. She's just like, I'm just looking at you as like my fiance and like, you know, and like confused. And then also there's like this whole thing, like my fiance might have been cheating on me, so I don't even know if I want to be with him anymore. So that's the like main thing of the story. So this whole show, you're waiting for the fiance to wake up because you're like, you need to confirm some things. You need to figure out your emotions. Like, you know, you need to figure out if it's actually like the 18-year-old you want to be with, and the 30-year-old guy, figure out if he's cheating. The last episode.
Oh gosh.
They switch back, but it doesn't happen on screen. It's like time skip. So-and-so switched back and he woke up. I was just like, and like with text, and I'm like, this is it, like 16 episodes and you're doing this on the last episode after a time skip. And it's like the woman kind of like narrating, and like they broke off the engagement and she's just like narrating what happens. And I'm like, why did he like, I'm
That's
like, why
amazing.
would you do this? Like, this makes no sense. Like, this is like literally the climax of the show people have been waiting for, and you do it with a time skip and a voiceover.
So, did he cheat? Is the question.
We don't know. We still don't know.
That's great.
We'll never know, apparently. And then the other thing, so like, I left this part out because I didn't want to make it that weird for you, but turns out that the 18-year-old is the 30-year-old's twin brother. The mom had twins, and one twin was like dying, I think, or like feeding off the other one. So like they took it out and like froze it, and then it got into a surrogate later on somehow. That's why they are there's an age difference.
This is hilarious.
So like there's a time skip, and you see like, so the other thing was like, so the 30-year-old actor is paid by Gong Yu, who is also like really popular actor. And so, and the 18-year-old was played by like an up and coming guy. So like, yeah. So at the end of this episode, you see the actor Gong Yu coming to like meet up with the girl, and you don't know if it's the 18-year-old grown up because there's a time skip because they're twins, or if it's her original fiance. This is why I hate time skips. They're just too confusing. It's too much.
That's great. Greatest
it was
thing ever.
horrible. It was so bad. I was so annoyed.
Of all time.
I watched this show maybe 5 years ago, maybe 4. I am still mad.
I could hear it.
Yeah, no, it was so frustrating because it could have been a great show, and it's just like, why would you do this? But I do like time skips though when they're served as kind of like epilogues, where it's like, time skip, here's an update on where everyone's at now. It's like, oh, they had a family, and I like that. And I think Endgame did a really good job with the time skip too.
Okay.
Yeah. But
I don't even know if I want to even give my example. This is the greatest example of all time.
It was the worst. I remember going to my brother and being like, this show, let me tell you.
Let me tell you.
Yes. But no, what was your time skip?
So mine is way more tame. Because I wish I knew what it was like to be a comic fan in that era.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I've talked about on this show the comic Infinite Crisis.
Mm-hmm.
I love the comic. At the end of the comic, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman take a year break.
Okay. Man, that's... okay.
And essentially what people say is that DC did two things right after this comic released.
Mm-hmm.
They started publishing this comic called 52,
and
then they restarted all, I think, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, I think a few other comics.
So the rebirth.
A time skip into the future. So you don't know what happens in that year.
Oh, that's interesting.
And what they do is that they fill in the year with this comic called 52, where it's each week they release a new comic, which is filling in the year gap. Is this the new 52? The same thing? No.
Okay.
Yeah, DC's terrible.
Comics.
Exactly.
You couldn't just come up with a new number. It's like we have the 52 and the new 52.
Yeah, exactly. But I was like, imagine what it's like to be a comic fan. You're just like, yo, there's a whole year of like Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman's life, and you're like, wait, what happened? He's like, I guess you're just gonna have to wait and see.
That's a good point, because I think with comic books we're so used to just knowing everything about what's happening in their lives, like moment to moment to moment, and it's interesting to be like, wait, what happened to this character?
And you have to wait a year of reading this side story to find out what in the world happened in like these rest of the, like, I think that's pretty cool. I'm curious how that would work in like a modern setting to do something that kind of intensive of a time skip. But I was just like, I would wonder what it's like to be a fan in that era. I'm just like, how you feel. Especially, at least for me, since I'm a Wonder Woman fan, I'm like, I wonder how I really feel after that. Because people feel so complicated about how Wonder Woman was treated in that comic. So I'm like, man, that fan base must have been really something else.
Yeah. I had a question. Two questions. When this comic it came out in 2012?
No, this comic is 2006, I think.
Okay. Oh, wow. So a while ago.
Yeah.
Do you think they could pull that off with movies? Like, if they did like a time skip between, like, you know, like one movie takes place in like 2019 and then the next movie takes place in like...
Don't give me Disney ideas, please. Because you want to know what they're gonna do? What they're gonna do is they do this exact thing, and then they force you to watch the in between on Disney Plus. That's what they want you to do. Yeah,
that's essentially what's gonna happen. I would not put that past them. Like, this movie takes place in 2019. This one takes place in 2030. Subscribe to our streaming platform to figure out what happens in these 10, 11 years.
I hate you, because now I know Disney listens to our podcast. I know they're gonna be like, you heard what she said? That's what we should do.
Yeah, no. All the capitalism.
You're the worst person.
Yeah. So yeah, do you think that would work well? I guess would that work well with movies though? Like just movies and no TV show? Or do you think it would work? Yeah.
I think you need a TV show in between. I don't think you can do it movie wise. I mean, it's interesting because I like the suspense that we felt of not knowing what was happening between Infinity War and Endgame. Like, we felt very much like oh my gosh, I can't wait to see what next. So like I feel like you could get people with that, but I feel like to flesh it out properly, you'd have to do a TV series.
That makes sense. Yeah, and I think that'd be fair. Like if there was a TV series between Infinity War and Endgame, that probably would have been like the most popular thing ever.
Yes, easily.
Yeah, because like definitely we're like craving for more and grasping for straws.
Exactly.
Yeah. Huh.
So I wanted to bring this up for hip hop too, and I'm curious where you're gonna go, because I don't feel like we get these time skips in hip hop as much anymore. Like ultimately, people usually within 2 years we get a album from somebody. Like when was the last time an artist took 4 years, 5 years, 6 years?
Right.
And that used to be kind of a thing. Like there used to be regularly Nas has taken like 3-year breaks, 2-year and I used to like the idea of like artists having to go live life before you give us another project.
Yeah.
Like right now, I'm waiting on Jay Gibbons. That's who I'm waiting on, and I haven't gotten a project from him since 2015. I'm like, this is.
You got a lot of life experience to talk about.
That's what I'm saying. Like, especially because the question was, he left also the cliffhanger. Was he? It sounded like he was quitting rap. But at the same time, he just posted on Twitter a few days ago that he quit his job. So I'm like, ooh, coming back to rap?
Right.
So like, this is the first time where I'm just like, I'm frothing at the mouth just to see like this. And I was like, we don't get moments like this as much. Like the last time I've already felt this was probably Fonte. Fonte was the last one, but it's nice to get like time skips in people's lives, because it means that they have something to communicate, like they have something to share. But I think that's just also by nature of the music I tend to appreciate more where people share about their lives. Like I don't know if a rapper who does just like punchline stuff could take like that much of a break.
Yeah, I think it might depend on who the rapper is, because I like punchline stuff. I think generally draws people with shorter attention spans, and it's like you have to keep people's attention.
Exactly.
Yeah, I did arrive at that same like idea, and I was really struggling. I actually Googled. I was like, what rappers recently have really made us wait for a while? And I couldn't really come up with anyone who made us wait for more than 2 years. Like even Kendrick, like I think he's kind of like made us wait a little bit, but he's always like he'll drop like Untitled Unmastered to like hold you over, or like something else, or he's like, and I think another thing, like people like jump on features and stuff like that.
Right.
Like J. Cole, like really 2 years. I was trying to think like Tyler the Creator maybe, like, but I think he dropped something like within the last 2 years before Igor. Is it Igor or Igor? Igor. Okay. So yeah, it's just you're right. We don't get it anymore, and I thought we were, but I think it's just we're so much more used to getting things at a higher volume that 1 or 2 years feels like forever.
Yes.
We're like forever, like before, like you said, it's like 3, 4, 5 years before you get another album from a rapper, which sounds like wild to me. Like I don't know if I can deal with that now.
You know who else comes to mind, but I think it's also by the nature of how they're set up. I think groups are the only set of people who tend to take long breaks. Because I'm like, in the last few years, we got a Tribe album after what was like 13-year wait,
right?
And then the same thing happened with
I think.
Even Wu took a few years, and then even De La Soul took like nearly 20. Like I feel like it's only those older rap groups who historically like it's like, oh, I guess they're disbanded. I guess they're not coming back together again. Like I guess that's kind of the closest that we get to it. And I don't know if we've gotten to the point where any newer groups are in a space where they're like, oh yeah, we've done what we need to do. We'll be back in like a long time. Like, I don't know.
Right.
I don't even know who you consider as like a young rap group that's taken a break. Because I'm like, Claire Soul Forces with novelists, it's probably been a 2-3 year break for them max.
Right. I guess I wouldn't consider the internet a rap group. They took 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of like, I don't even think we really have groups anymore though. We kind of have collectives.
I mean, we got Pro Era, which is a group / collective, depending on which way you want to look at it.
Yeah.
We got Beast Coast, I think is Flatbush Zombies. Sorry, that's one thing.
That's a group. Yeah, trio, yeah. And they just released something recently, which we should probably check out, like Pro Era, Flatbush Zombies, and
that's the album I call Beast Coast. That's what I was like, I wanted to listen to that.
Ah, okay. I thought they released something else recently.
Is it?
The group together is called Beast Coast. Yeah. But they just released a project. Okay, yeah, the Underachievers, right?
Yeah, that's the other group, and they like everyone's been kind of really consistent.
Yeah. And I mean, I think Escape from New York, that's a project, but they have been like even. Like, it feels like a while since we've had a Kendrick project, but it's really been like...
It's been 2
not even a full 2 years.
Right. And people still play Damn. Like, it's not like...
They do.
I heard Love on the radio recently. So.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I really don't know.
Yeah.
I do not... Yeah, I guess we don't.
Not for younger artists. I think it's just older artists in general. I'm curious. Yeah. I'm curious what will be the case when a lot of the younger artists get old, if they'll start really taking that break.
I was just thinking that too, because I think you kind of made a good point earlier where it's like, I think when you're young and starting out, you have so much to say, and at some point you run out. And I think that's when it's like, I need to take a step back. I need to stop. I think that's even maybe why we get like Jay-Z's retirements. It's like, I don't have anything more to say. And then like you live life 3 years later, you're like, oh, I have new things to say. I want to rap again. Cause like you start thinking, I'm guessing, you start creating and these things happen to me and I want to express them. So yeah, I think it might be an age thing and not even like you being young and like your physical age, but like how long you've been a rapper.
Right.
Yeah. Like, if you're still young in, like, the rap game, quote unquote, then I think you're still going to have more to say. And then, like, the more you've been in this, the more, like... And I don't think that's even true for every rapper, but I think that might be what leads to the gaps. Or what will lead to gaps in the future.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And audiences change. Yeah, sorry. No, I was just saying, like, audiences change, too. Like, we're going to get older, or, the people they're trying to reach are going to be different, and, yeah.
Right. I think this is a good way to get into our what question. And I'm going to rephrase it because I realize the way I phrased it on the notes don't capture what I want to say.
Yeah, I was slightly confused.
What is the thing, either in hip-hop or nerdom, that you think that you've been waiting for the longest? Like, and I want to say that it's been at least partially confirmed. That you've been like, oh, I've waited for this for like 10 years or whatever. Like you've been actively waiting.
Right. Huh. So I want to give an obvious answer and a not so obvious answer.
Okay.
Obvious answer is Sailor Moon Crystal. I think seeing like I forgot what you call it, but like not a remake, but a do you know the word I'm trying to say?
I guess a remaster-ish kind of thing.
Yeah.
I would still say a remake is fair. A remake is fair. I mean, that's what Crystal is.
Yeah, okay. I guess, yeah. It's a remake. And yeah, just like kind of updated art, even though I think the original art is still better. I'm really, really, really excited for this English version of Sailor Moon Stars, which is the 5th season, which has never gotten an English translation.
Oh, yeah.
The only reason I was able to watch is because I found a bootleg DVD on the internet about 15 years ago, maybe, and ended up watching it that way. And it is season 2 and season 5 are my favorite seasons / arcs in the show. So like I'm really excited to see what they do with that. I really like Sailor Galaxia's voice already. So yeah. The other not so obvious one. That's a bit. You know what? I don't know why I did that to myself because I didn't have anything. I want to say Kendrick's To Pimp a Butterfly, but I don't think that was long enough. I feel like it was Salem Crystal, yeah. Cause yeah, I mean, from Good Kid, Mad City to Pimp a Butterfly, I think Kendrick was like, yeah, I'm just go with it. Because he was, I think, one of the first rappers in a while at the time that I was really excited about.
Right.
So like, I remember being on the bus to New Orleans, and then ended up becoming friends with the guy next to me, and then like I think the album leaked, and I was like, Kendrick's album leaked. I was just like actually excited. I think it's the first time in a while I'd felt like that much excitement about a project in hip hop like that, where it's like, yeah. I think that's it.
So let's see what comes to mind. So I'm gonna give you one that's not me, but I watched happen, and I was like, I'll never forget the day. I think it's as much as 3 years ago it happened. People had. So I actually don't know how much you've heard people talk about this Zelda game. Do you hear people talk about Majora's Mask? Like, does that come up in your group of people?
I'm not on Zelda Twitter. I only hear about Ocarina of Time.
Okay. So the short version of this is Ocarina of Time came out in 98. In the year 2000, the last Zelda game on N64 was called Majora's Mask. And Majora's Mask has been always looked at as the black sheep of a franchise because of it has this rewinding time mechanic. It is very much more side quest oriented. It was a game that was historically rushed out in like a year development cycle, and it's not rushed in terms of like being a bad game, but it's like they created a new game gimmick, an idea to kind of capture that time thing that they were experiencing, so to speak.
Right.
And that game has been like notoriously known, but people had always been asking for a remake by the time, like, because that's the year 2000. So, like, by the time we get to, call it 2011, one of the first things that were shown for the 3DS was the remake of Ocarina of Time. And then people are like, if you're remaking Ocarina, where's Majora's Mask? And then for like 4 years straight, people were like, where's Majora's Mask? They released a new Zelda game on the handheld. And inside of it, there's like a small picture of the mask in one of the houses. And people were like, where's Majora's Mask? And then the minute that they saw the trailer, it didn't open, obviously. They just showed a clock starting to tick. I mean, I was like, oh, I bet you. I was like, I have never played the game. But I was like, oh, I know it's Zelda. I mean, the fan community went wild afterwards because it's like they waited 20 years to be able to replay this game. Like, not 20, it's like year 2020. So like that's what it's been, about 14 years of this, and it's like, man, people felt so relieved. They finally got what they wanted. I was so happy for the fan base, although the fan base is now split on how they remade the game. So it's kind of like people just feel like, don't ever remake it again. But to me, I think that's the one I've ever seen. As for me, I think the longest wait I've gone through is maybe it involves Fonte again, because I don't know if you heard recently, they just announced Little Brother getting back together.
Yeah, I'm excited for that.
Yeah, and for me, it's like, I don't even know if I ever told you a story of how I got into Little Brother.
I don't think so.
It was really late. Like, I got into them about it was hilarious. It was around 2009, 2010.
Okay.
And 2010 is when they released their last album. I was like, oh wow, perfect timing for me to get into the group. And it's like, now what? This is 2019, 9 years between albums, and now I get to like be a part of a release cycle. I was like, oh yeah, like I got Fonte albums between, but this isn't. Yeah, and it's like, oh, I this is my longest wait, I think, for me, because everything else I think has been reasonable years wise. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah. I think the only thing for me is Sam Crystal. I wish I had something else. I can't think of something hip hop necessarily that's like has that like span like over 5 years.
Right.
Yeah. If I think of it, I'll tweet it.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't hip hop, but I don't know how long the waits have been. How long has a Beyonce album wait ever really been? Is it longer than 2 years?
Actually, yeah, that might be it, because she does make people wait. Let's see. Pull up her. I don't think before she did, but ever since she released self-titled, I think there's definitely been a gap more so. Let's do this. Discography. I just don't want to get the years wrong.
It's okay. The Bayhive they don't treat people negatively. They never come for people online. These are the greatest fans of all time. So kind of
considerate. I can't even deny that. I can't even say anything about that. So let's see. So yeah, so self-titled drops in 2013. We wait 3 years until Lemonade. That's a pretty long wait.
Ish.
For a pop artist.
Ish.
Yeah. And then we haven't got anything we got Everything Is Love. We haven't got a solo album from her since then. So that's been another 3 years, which should hopefully mean that it's coming soon. Yeah.
So we want you guys to answer us. Like, what's the longest thing that you've been waiting on? Like, as a fan for a video game, a TV show, second season, whatever. What is it that you've been waiting on? Where can they like message us to let us know what they've been waiting on?
So you can message us on Twitter using hashtag nerdsonhiphop or ask NOHH. Or you can email us the answer at nerdsonhiphop@gmail.com. Pretty much anywhere. You can also get at us on our personal Instagrams and Twitter. I'm Miss Old School. It's Old School with a K. And the Wolvesden is
the Wolvesden 25 on Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah.
We thank you guys. Oh, go ahead.
No, let us know the answer. Let us know what's the thing that's made you wait so long in hip hop or something nerdy. Yes,
and I will say, for the next few episodes, you're going to get something different from us. Please give us feedback of what works for you for these next few episodes. We are trying to experiment with the format of the show to give you something that you will find value in. And that's not to say that these style episodes won't happen. They will still always happen. Like these are our main core episodes. Format. There's a reason why we never call these filler.
Yeah.
But
definitely.
We have a few stuff that we're kind of excited to give you over the next few weeks. But let us know if you like those episodes and what you guys would want to hear from us going forward.
Agreed. And same way you can reach out to us. Twitter, Instagram, anywhere, essentially. Or SoundCloud comment, YouTube comment. We look at those too.
Yeah, we actually do. And I think that's it. Sayonara.
Bye. Thanks for listening.